Welcome to the Dragon Slayer Academy, an RPG where you level up characters to crush monsters, and I'm a total nerd for this game. The undisputed number one, I've mastered every single class. And I'm officially the greatest support player ever. But suddenly the world glitches and I'm staring down a terrifying beast, but thanks to my S-rank Saintess, we survive the onslaught. And my Archmage unleashes pure devastation, while my Dark Knight dashes in for the kill, delivering a lethal slash and securing our victory with ease. But my favorite part of the game is the hidden loot, a rare pure blood magic stone, so I summon my secret weapon Carmilla and turn this basic NPC into an S-rank powerhouse. Watching her power surge, making her the 1000th hero I've maxed out. Then I finally run out of things to do, and just as I'm about to log off, a mysterious notification pops up, and it's a quest I've never seen before. An X-rank mission to save the world, and I'm thinking, wait, X-rank does not exist. But I can't turn down fresh content, so I click accept, and suddenly I'm standing in the middle of a forest realizing I've been reincarnated into the game. And I'm starting from absolute scratch. I check my stats, completely empty, but then I get a system ping and I've been granted some starting perks. Plus a tutorial mission to survive 10 minutes, but the ground starts shaking, and I look up to see a massive shadow, a pair of S-rank dragons fighting in the sky. And I'm freaking out. Bosses in the tutorial. I start sprinting for my life and the sky turns into a rain of fire, but then I realize this is the perfect chance to use my copy skill. So I watch the dragons, closely waiting for them to trigger their ultimate, and boom. The sky erupts and I lock the skill into my vision. And a new passive registers elemental resistance S-rank. I got lucky. I'd love to copy their breath attack, but I have 0 mana and the wind shifts violently. As the red dragon prepares to fire and the blue dragon charges its static, and I realize they're both about to unleash hell and I'm barely holding on. But at this range I'm definitely going to die, but then, tutorial complete and I'm off to the academy. I board the Dragon Slayer train and find a seat across from a mysterious girl, but she's totally silent, so I ask if I can sit and she just shrugs. And finally looks up, so I introduce myself as Ho Kim and she says she's Yain Seo, while a guy named Hyun Yugo joins us. And he's acting like a character from a wuxia novel, and we start chatting about our near-death experiences, and the train starts moving, and I realize something is different about this run. Because the people here feel so real, and I've never seen these students before, and I know I need to stay sharp, but Yain Seo is staring at me. And she has those special eyes looking right through my stats, and she realizes I'm not like the others, so I ask if there's something on my face. And she gets flustered and pulls out a case full of cookies and asks if I want one. So I take a bite, and it's actually pretty good, so I ask Hyun Yu about his sword, and he calls it a holy relic, claiming he's never met anyone he could not defeat, so I tell him to get something sturdier, but then a guy slams the door open and he's super loud. So I ask why he's really here, and he offers his odd job services for a price, and I'm intrigued, so I call him out for being hunted. And he admits I'm right, but before he can explain he panics and the prefects arrive to drag us out. And I'm not ready for this, but they're already making their move, and the lead girl demands I hand over the goods, and she zaps a guy with lightning. And I realize that's a rare skill, so I decide to copy it, and I drop my cookie, and she threatens to take me down. But I'm already locked in, and I steal her hummingbird skill and grab her arm, channeling the static. And she asks if I have an ally, and I step forward, mourning my dropped cookie, and she looks completely shocked. As I officially unlock the lightning type skill, Hummingbird, you really should not have made me drop my cookie, and now these uptight prefects are trying to flex their authority, but I'm not backing down. I'll draw my blade if I have to. The tension in the hallway is thick enough to cut, so they try to bribe me with a cafeteria coupon to keep the peace, but I've already got my eyes on a much bigger prize. I just copied the lightning type skill Hummingbird right out of her hands. And she's absolutely livid that I messed with the station attendant, but I just wave goodbye. I've got my own path to follow. She's fuming, but I've already made my mark, and my buddy fills me in on who these elites actually are. Like Chinhai Song, the granddaughter of the legendary Sovereign of Thunder, the rest of the crew are just as dangerous, but I'm just laughing it off. What a wild group of people, and he's still wondering why I'd risk it all for a snack. But I'm already analyzing the mechanics of that lightning bird, because it's not just for damage. It's a precision tool for control, and I'm already one step ahead of the game. It mimics the bird's flight, meaning it is all about the user's skill. So I can literally gauge their combat experience by how it moves, and she's clearly a novice. I caught her spell with my bare hand. She's got the power but zero control, and I've already gathered enough intel to last a lifetime. So I'm adding her to my list of potential recruits. We're bonding over this fated encounter, and he's swearing his loyalty to me already, so I decide to show him something truly special. We find this old broken slot machine in the corner, and it's a relic from when this train was a casino, but I know exactly how to rig the system. It looks dead, but I've got a trick up my sleeve. And suddenly the hidden event triggers. Jackpot, I've got to finish this before we reach our stop, so I keep pulling the lever, but the first few tries are total duds, just water bottles. He's confused why I'm obsessed with this machine, but I'm just waiting for the guaranteed payout, and just as things get interesting the prefects show up again. They're threatening us with demerits for loitering. But I'm already deep into the event, and I'm ready to dance with them if I have to. I challenge them to a spar, and the action kicks off instantly, with blades clashing in a shower of sparks, but I'm holding my own while she's pouring everything into her strikes. I'm dodging and weaving. And he's struggling to keep up with her raw power, so I activate my casting boost to turn the tide. I'm buying him time to recover, and the clash of steel is deafening. But I'm already counting down the seconds. I'm back at the machine one last pull, and the prize is finally within my reach because the sixth try is always a guaranteed win. I've got the item and it's time to end this little game, so I pull out the dark ice. A deadly cold surprise. They're stunned that I actually pulled it off. And I'm just getting started while they're still reeling from the pressure. I pop the supplement to boost my mana and the cold hits me hard. But my S-rank resistance makes it a breeze. I'm totally fine just messing with them, and it's just a little mana booster, but for anyone else this ice would be a death sentence. My status effects are clearing instantly, and they're still arguing over what they just witnessed, but I'm just happy to have had such an exciting spar. They want to see more, but I'm keeping my cards close. And we're already nearing our destination, Dungeon Island, the final stop where the first Dragon Slayer changed everything, crushing the criminals and conquering the dungeons. To build the academy we're standing in today. The legacy of the Dragon Slayer is everywhere, and the campus is buzzing with new students, all of them full of energy and ambition. It's a massive crowd, and suddenly I'm being singled out with a direct order to follow them straight to the prefect office. And into the infamous room of truth. The prefects are grilling me about that mysterious item I pulled from the slot machine, but since I've already cleansed it, they can't pin anything on me. Lucky break, and even though Sehun-Oh tries to act all high and mighty with his warnings, he lets me off with a clean record, telling me to just get out of his sight. Meanwhile, Chun-Hai Song is still fuming, completely baffled by how I managed to slip through the cracks, and she's obsessing over why I'd even bother with that rigged machine if I was not hunting for contraband. They're convinced I've got some illegal skill hidden up my sleeve. And now they're planning to use a magnifying glass to expose my secrets. Talk about desperate. But what happens if I'm actually clean and they're forced to back down while I head off to the entrance ceremony? Sehun sends me on my way. And I manage to find a seat just in time, finally cashing in on my rewards and recouping my losses. Easy money. Then the principal walks in, and honestly the guy looks more like a total bum than a legendary hero. But apparently he's the real deal, even if he's been rejected by the Saintess 5 times now. Poor guy, and he starts his speech rambling on about the grim reality of being a dragon slayer. And why the first hero chose such a brutal title for this academy. It's a long, heavy lecture about the fate of taking lives, and honestly I'm just getting a massive headache from all this doom and gloom. He finally wraps it up. And while my buddy is soaking up every word like it's gospel, a prefect steps up to drop the hammer on the new rules, warning us that the practical evaluations are going to be held in a literal dungeon, and she glares at us like she's just waiting for someone to screw up. The ceremony ends and we're all starving, so we head out to grab some food, and I notice my buddy's got some weird scratches on his face, but he just brushes it off because we've got a huge day of training ahead. Later that night I realize my dorm neighbor is actually the guy from earlier, and I shut the door, but I'm not hitting the sack just yet. I've got work to do. I sit down to meditate, focusing my energy to finally forge my own core. Because without a power source, I'm just a guy with a stick, and thanks to that dark ice my mana reserves are absolutely surging. I've got this, and meanwhile Hyun Yugo is doing the same. Reflecting on how that fight with Somi Han was the toughest one he's ever had, and how he only survived because I stepped in to carry the team. He's looking at me with a mix of respect and curiosity, wondering if he should ask for my help. But he decides to push his limits on his own. A true grind set. I keep pushing my own limits, and the next morning the lecture hall is buzzing with nervous energy, and our classmate finally rolls in looking like she barely woke up on time. We're all waiting for the teacher, and then the door swings open and everyone goes dead silent the moment he walks in. It's Sudak Lee. And he points at a student, demanding to know his terrifying nickname, and the kid stammers out the butcher, which makes sense, because in this world villains are everywhere, and Sudak Lee is the guy who makes sure they do not stay alive for long. He's a total professional, and he threatens to kill us if we drag down his perfect track record. No pressure, right? He starts writing the grading criteria on the board, and it's a brutal mix of written tests, attitude, and pure combat. And he makes it clear he's watching the troublemakers like a hawk. Then he gets to the main event, dungeon clearing and PvP, where we're forced to beat the hell out of our own classmates for points. It's a 100% total, and he's ready to drag us to the arena, where the first clashes are already breaking out and the whole place is going wild for the placement exams. The rules are simple. It's a deathmatch fight until someone drops or gives up. And you've only got 5 minutes before it's ruled a draw. Each win nets you 300 points and luckily, a loss does not tank your score, but I've got a sub-quest to clear. And I need to rank high to unlock more skill slots. More importantly, this is my chance to scout the competition and see who's actually worth copying. They call my name. And I step onto the stage facing off against a ruby mage who specializes in massive fire damage, but I'm just smirking. She has no idea what's coming. She's looking down on me thinking I'm a nobody. And she's mocking my basic E rank staff like it's a toy, assuming I'm just some weak support mage, but she's about to find out how wrong she is. She launches a massive explosion. And the crowd is stunned by the sheer power, but her eyes go wide when she realizes I'm still standing, and the scoreboard shows we're both at 100%. Wait, what? I did not even have to try. And she's left completely shook that her best shot did absolutely nothing. The match is heating up and my opponent just took a massive hit, but she barely managed to keep her barrier up. A total struggle. She's desperate to keep her distance. But the crowd is already whispering about her high-end gear and she switches to a rifle to gain the upper hand. She fires off a shot, but I'm keeping the pressure on. And she realizes she can't just play defense forever. She tries to reposition, but I'm tracking her every move and she finds a tiny opening to counter, a risky play. She unleashes a surge of power, but I'm already one step ahead and I finally corner her. Game over, she's stunned. And the shock of the defeat hits her hard, leaving her completely wiped out on the floor. The crowd is in total disbelief and she's left reeling from the loss. While I just walk away like it was nothing. I collect my winnings and my buddy tries to go for round 2, but I'm already eyeing the next big fight. It's the apprentice of the King of Fists and the tension in the arena is palpable, so we place our bets on the outcome. He's confident. And he's clearly fighting for someone's approval, but he knows this won't be an easy win. He draws his blade, but his opponent is ready for anything. And the brawl kicks off with pure intensity. He's holding his own and they clash with everything they've got, trading blows at breakneck speed. His technique is flawless, but he's forced to block a devastating strike and he's pushed back by the sheer force. He realizes he's outmatched in raw power. So he goes all in, channeling his ultimate technique to end it, but his opponent counters with a brutal strike and the impact is deafening. He's forced to concede, and the match ends in a hard-fought defeat. I knew his gear would not hold up because he's burning through weapons like they're nothing. My friend is completely blown away, and I just laugh it off, collecting my payout while he's left speechless. He's dying to know my secrets. So I trade some info for a favor. The break is over and we're all grabbing a quick bite, but he won't stop pestering me with questions. I finally give him the lowdown on the Academy's top dogs, breaking down the 4 major factions, starting with the legendary sword Saint's Heir, then the powerhouse from the Ruby Tower, and the mysterious druid with her sidekick, plus the elite son of the sword master. He's taking notes like his life depends on it, but suddenly he realizes he's late. And he panics, sprinting off like a madman. I'm left with the quiet girl and she's still feeling the sting of her loss. So I try to lighten the mood. I share a digital treat with her and she's genuinely touched by the gesture, but she's still curious about her failure. She asks me why she could not win, and I give her the cold hard truth about her tactics, suggesting she needs to upgrade her game, but she's shocked to hear I've never even trained, leaving her completely baffled by how I'm so strong. After the match, I'm breaking down the basics with the quiet girl, and I'm honestly shocked she's a total prodigy because she's been pulling off high-level moves purely on instinct. So I offer to help her train whenever we get the chance. Then it's time to shift gears and head straight for the next big challenge, and we arrive at the dungeon gates where the real test begins. The rules for the Misty Forest are brutal. 10-minute score attack and a hard F rank restriction. So you've got to rack up kills fast to climb the leaderboard. They're locking our gear and stats to keep things fair, and everyone's sweating, terrified of mismanaging their mana, but honestly watching them struggle is just pathetic. The proctor is scanning the room looking for anyone actually worth his time, and he's already annoyed by how weak these kids are, so he calls out my name and the girls to step up. I tell her to grab a rifle and stick to the plan. While some random girl scoffs, wondering why she's taking advice from a guy like me, but I just brush it off and head into the portal. The rank restriction kicks in, stripping me down to basics, and I'm ready to see exactly where my current level stands. I pull out my gear, and the moment the timer starts, the monsters swarm, but I'm already predicting their every move because this dungeon follows a specific predictable pattern. I spot the spawn point and realize it's pattern C, so I move to intercept the next wave before they even appear, and I'm taking them down with surgical precision. 1 strike, 1 kill. And I realize I don't even need my staff for this because I'm just farming these monsters for their weapons, and I'm absolutely raking in the points. The carnage is non-stop. And I'm tearing through the trolls like they're nothing, but I realize I've got to be careful with the recording, so I decide to delete the replay to avoid any unwanted attention. I've hit 683 points in just 3 minutes. And I've already cleared my sub-quest, so I decide to call it quits early to stay under the radar. I step back out, and the girl stumbles out right behind me. looking completely exhausted from her run while the proctor watches stunned that I finished so fast. He's questioning how I'm supposed to be the one to save the world, but he can't deny the insane score on the board. So he decides he's going to keep a very close eye on me. Next up is the heavy hitter Hyun Yu, and the leaderboard is stacked with the Academy's elite, but I know Hyun Yu has the skills to handle the pressure. And sure enough, he smashes the record to take first place. The crowd is whispering shocked he broke the 1,000-point barrier, and he comes over to thank me for the advice, but I'm just trying to keep my head down. While the other students grumble jealous of his success, he tries to defend me, but I tell him to just let it go, and he finally backs down. So we just wait for the last student to finish up. I glance at the portal wondering what's taking her so long, and inside, she's struggling against a massive horde, completely overwhelmed by the sheer number of enemies. And her spells are barely doing anything to slow them down. She remembers my advice about focusing her mana, and she decides to stop wasting energy on AI attacks, so she channels everything into a single devastating lightning strike. And she barely scrapes by with a decent score. She walks out embarrassed by her performance, and the proctor finally calls an end to the exams, dismissing everyone for the day. Later, the proctor heads to his office demanding to see the replay of my run, and he's not taking no for an answer, but when he checks the logs, he finds absolutely nothing. The data is completely wiped, leaving him with nothing but a mystery. The proctor is losing his mind because I wiped my dungeon replay, and he knows that score would have shattered every record in the academy. But he's also paranoid about potential spies lurking in the shadows, so he decides to keep me under a microscope instead of confronting me directly. A dangerous game. He debates reporting me to the principal, but realizes that pushing too hard will only make me more careful. So he settles on watching my every move until I finally slip up. Meanwhile, I'm just focused on my own agenda, grabbing a coffee with Hyun Yu to break down the academy's point system, and since she's exhausted, it's just the two of us plotting our next move. I pull out the catalog I snagged earlier and start filling her in on the essentials, showing her how to track her points, which act as the ultimate currency here, and explaining that they're the key to unlocking real power. I bring up the dungeon replays and show her how to buy them to scout the competition, pulling up a recording of her own fight to analyze her mistakes, and noting that my own high-ranking run has already been bought by plenty of jealous eyes. It's a double-edged sword, but I warn her that while she's strong, her weak mana core is a massive liability in a real fight, so I point her toward the mana enhancement chamber to fix it, where the energy is dense enough to fast-track her growth, and she's shocked such a place even exists. It's not cheap, costing 500 points for a single session, which would drain her dry if she went every day. So I offer her a better way, a season pass. It's locked behind the top-tier clubs, but I promise to secure one for her if she helps me out later, and she's all in, ready to follow my lead into the dungeon's depths. It's going to be a life-or-death struggle, but she's finally ready to embrace the path of a true warrior, and she seals the deal with a firm promise. All in Brother Kim, I give her 2 weeks to make it happen. Then I head off to the Magical Engineering Club to make my own play, finding the club member deep in his work, and I butter him up with a friendly greeting, though he's clearly annoyed by the interruption, telling me to hurry up and get lost, but I'm just getting started. I analyze his B-rank engineering skills and instantly copy them to my own arsenal. Objective complete. I scan the room for the real prize and spot the legendary blueprint I've been hunting for playing dumb as I ask him about the paperweight cube, and he practically begs me to take it off his hands. So I trade him a simple reagent for the priceless item, and he thinks he's fleeced me, but I'm the one walking away with a steal. I just saved 1,000 points on a gold mine. And the system confirms my new subquest, which I accept without a second thought. Easy money. The final reward is the S-rank cube of life, and I waste no time heading to the training center, where I can craft this beast without the usual grind, using my boosted skills to start the process, but it's a massive undertaking, and at this rate, it'll take me 3 days to finish. So I have to pace myself to avoid burning out. I switch to meditation to refine my core while the cube processes, cycling between training and crafting to maximize my efficiency, because I need this done before the Friday event hits. And as the morning sun rises, it's time to head back to class. I catch up with her early, and she's already waiting, handing me some cookies as a thank you. And I can't help but laugh at the dinosaur shapes while she eagerly asks how the training went, and she's thrilled to report her own massive gains in chi, so I promise to keep pushing until she gets that pass. It's a deal. Suddenly, the proctor storms in and kills the mood, announcing that starting today we're hitting the arena for PvP with a 10-minute limit and mandatory matches to keep our scores up, and I just smirk. It's finally time to show them what I've got. The proctor drops a bombshell announcing mandatory PvP matches in the arena. The real test begins. He cranks up the pressure with a 10-minute time limit and warns that anyone failing to participate will see their hard-earned scores plummet. Dismissed. I get the notification for a new subquest. And I'm ready to crush these matches. Easy wins. I head to the arena with Hyun-Yu reminding her that my high-ranking replays are going to be hot property and she's eager to get moving. No time to waste. She surprises me by saying she's free today. And the other students start whispering, confused by our sudden closeness. What's the deal? I clarify we're just talking about magic ammo training and we agree to link up later. The plan is in motion. We arrive at the arena. And I immediately spot a guy who's infamous for forfeiting against Lady Song, a total pushover. Hyun-Yu does not hold back, calling him out for being a coward, and she's ready to throw hands right there. The tension is palpable. I step in to calm her down. And I turn to the guy asking how he did on his exam, just to twist the knife. He claims he scored a 300, and he starts bragging about how he would have done better if he had not faced Chin-hai, so I laugh, realizing he's the one I saw getting carried out by the medics. Pathetic. He snaps, his ego clearly bruised, and he challenges me to a match since we're both sitting at 300 points. Big mistake. He draws his weapon, screaming for me to get down there. He's asking for it. We step into the arena, the system locking in our scores. And he's desperate to settle this quickly. He's got no idea who he's dealing with. I just smile, ready to show him the difference in our levels, and the match starts with him lunging in. Too slow. I stop his strike cold. And I hit him with a paralysis spell. He's completely frozen. I tell him I'm not going to knock him out in one hit like Chin-hai did, and he panics, realizing he's totally outmatched. Too late. I unleash a flurry of strikes, leaving him reeling. Pure humiliation. The system dings, declaring my victory. The coward goes down. He's shaking on the floor, making excuses about letting his guard down, and I just offer him another round. Let's keep the beatdown going. He agrees, desperate to save face. But the result is exactly the same. He's getting schooled. He's still trying to fight, but I've had enough, and I tell him I'm tired. Time to wrap this up. I check my quest progress, still needing one more match. And I decide to keep playing with him to milk the experience. He's a perfect training dummy. I demand my lesson fees for the beatdown, and he hands over a rare medicinal pellet from his household. Worth the effort. I make him swear to keep our matches a secret. And I decide to keep playing along until he's completely broken. The ultimate power trip. I finish him off for good, and he finally drops the act, apologizing for his earlier rudeness. He knows his place now. He admits I'm not the coward he thought I was. But I tell him to keep acting like I am. I prefer the element of surprise. He agrees to keep his mouth shut, realizing he's the only loser here. A hard lesson learned. I catch up with Hyun-Yu, who's already crushed 2 matches, and she tells me to go on ahead. She's got this. I head to the mana enhancement chamber to meet her, and we start the real lesson on refining magic ammo. Time to level up. She shows me her technique, and I'm genuinely impressed. She's got raw talent. I start teaching her how to distribute her mana, and she's already putting it to work in her own matches. A natural marksman. She uses the terrain to hide, and she spots her opponent's mana flow instantly. Her eyes are evolving. Her opponent thinks he's safe behind a barrier, but she pierces it with a single refined shot. Game over. He's stunned, wondering how she pulled that off, and she just stays focused. A cold-blooded shooter. She wins the match, and the system confirms her victory. She's a beast. Back in the shadows, the proctor is watching the replays, and he's losing his mind over how fast she's mastering control. It's unnatural. He's obsessed with my performance. And he's starting to realize something is seriously wrong with the data. He's digging his own grave. He sees her bullets are no longer just blobs of magic, and he can't believe the progress she's made in 2 days. He's terrified. He's fixated on me, wondering who I really am. And he's starting to suspect I'm the one pulling the strings. He's right. Meanwhile, I'm in the training room, and I finally finish crafting the item. It's done. The cube of life is ready, and my power is about to skyrocket. Let the games begin. I've finally finished crafting the cube of life, and it's a total game changer for my plans, boosting the effectiveness of all my life-based items by 30%. Massive power spike. Thanks to some intense meditation and quest rewards, my core is finally D-rank. And I'm ready to put my new gear to the test, but fate has other plans when I run into Nari Park, the rising star of the nature club. Perfect timing. Her beast senses the life energy radiating from my cube immediately. And she's completely distracted by it. Hook, line, and sinker. She's so embarrassed by her pet's behavior that she's totally off guard, but I keep my cool, playing the part of the busy student, and I quickly brush her off to keep the mystery alive. The ultimate tease. She's clearly curious about me, asking if I'm in class 3, and I give her just enough to keep her hooked. The season pass is basically mine. Back in class, the teacher drones on about dungeon monsters, but I'm counting down the seconds until the bell rings. And the moment it hits, the entire room goes haywire. Total chaos. A sudden flash of red light erupts, and everyone is panicking, wondering what kind of trap this is as a strange energy field zaps the students. Pure panic. It's the Academy's infamous ban wave, an unannounced bag check, and suddenly everyone has a giant one glowing on their forehead. Busted. The room is filled with murmurs as students realize they've all been marked, and the system begins scanning for any forbidden contraband. No one is safe. It's a ruthless way for the school to filter out the troublemakers, and I watch as the guy next to me starts sweating bullets, knowing he's got a stash of illegal goods he can't afford to lose. Pathetic. He's checking his inventory in a panic. So I lean in, offering him a lifeline he can't refuse, a deal with the devil. He's terrified of getting caught, and I smirk, offering to hide his items in my cube for a price. He's desperate enough to beg for my help. And I make sure he knows he owes me big time. A debt is a debt. He dumps his stash into my cube, and I warn him to trust me or lose everything. The pressure is mounting. The inspectors are closing in. And they burst through the doors, demanding we freeze. It's go time. They force us under the desks, but I keep my composure, acting like we were just hanging out, and the inspectors start their aggressive search. No room for error. They pull out a crystal ball to sniff out the mana, and I hold my breath as they scan my desk. The tension is suffocating. It doesn't react to me, so they move on. Clean getaway. I quickly slip away to meet the Thieves Club president. And I've got the perfect leverage to get what I need. A new alliance. My new friend leads me through the dark alleys of the campus, and I remind him that I always collect on my debts. Do not forget it. We finally reach the Thieves Club room. And I'm ready to face the boss. Time to negotiate. My contact calls out, but the room is eerily quiet, and suddenly a foot slams into him. The boss is already here. She's absolutely wrecking him for being a screw-up. And I step forward, introducing myself with a polite bow. The calm before the storm. Jiao Yongdang, the club president, stands over him, and she demands to know what kind of protection I'm offering. Show me the goods. I place the cube on the table. And her eyes light up. She knows exactly what she's looking at. She wants to steal it, but I warn her about the security measures. Do not even think about it. She realizes this is a high-end magic engineering item, and she flops into her chair, ready to talk business. The power dynamic has shifted. She claims they're in a tough spot, but I know exactly what they need. A way to move their loot. I tell her I want access to the short-term storage room, and she's shocked I even know it exists. I've done my homework. That's where they keep all the confiscated goods before they vanish, and I'm planning to raid it before the weekend is over. The ultimate heist. She demands to know if the prefects sent me, and I laugh it off. We're definitely not on the same side. She says it's too dangerous to break in, but I've got the perfect plan to bypass the guards. The cube is the key. I offer to solve their transport problem if they get me inside, and she finally sees the potential for a massive payday. She's in. I've got her right where I want her. Let the games begin. The Thieves Club gathers under the moonlight, and the boss demands to know if everyone is ready, but they're all staring at me, wondering who the new kid is. She tells them I'm the key to this job, and despite their grumbling, I just brush off the doubt. Let's get to work. She checks the final details on her device and gives the order to grab anything rare that fits in my cube. I activate my mana, and we dash into the shadows using a B-rank shadow step I just copied. Time to move. The skill boosts my speed. But suddenly a prefect appears, humming to himself, and he spots a stray butterfly. A bad omen. I do not hesitate, unleashing a blast of dark energy, and he's pinned down before he can even scream. Total lockdown. I step over him, annoyed by the extra security, but another guard rounds the corner, catching us red-handed, and he tries to call for backup, but we wrap him up in shadows instantly. Silence is golden. I tell them to stay calm, and we reach the storage room, where I pull out my scanner to check for loot, but my heart sinks when I see an rank axe wielder guarding the door. This is bad. It's an impossible matchup, so I decide to intervene, and I whisper to the boss, asking if she knows the fleeting dream technique. She's confused, but I do not have time to explain, so I force boost her skill from C rank to a rank. Watch this. She's stunned by the sudden power spike, and she looks at me like I'm a monster, but she channels the butterflies and they swarm the guard, slicing through his defenses with a single swing, leaving him completely overwhelmed by the sudden assault. The explosion of magic clears the path, and the guard is cocooned in shadows. One-hit wonder. She's clearly got questions, but I shut her down, and we finally break into the vault. Time to go shopping. I start stuffing the cube with forbidden goods, specifically looking for items with elemental debuffs. Because my resistance stats make them harmless to me. Free power-up. I grab a few skill books for good measure, and I find a rare combat manual, which is a total jackpot. Time to level up. But the mood shifts when the student council president walks in, accompanied by a prefect. We're busted. The boss is fuming at the betrayal, and he orders us to disarm immediately. But I'm not going down without a fight, so I signal the team to scatter. Run for it. I cast a dome of shadows to mask our escape, and we vanish into the dark, leaving the prefects empty-handed, but they're fast, and one of them is already on my tail, and he launches a massive stone projectile which I barely dodge. That was close. He's impressed I'm still standing, and he tries to trap me with a green mana field, but I stay silent, keeping him guessing, and I counter with a brutal strike, sending him crashing into the wall. Game over. He's down for the count, and later back in class the teacher explains the rules for the upcoming dungeon run, but I'm just thinking about the loot. And he warns us that we only get one shot at a scored run. No pressure. I need to find the optimal path, and a classmate tries to team up with me, but I politely decline. And I turn to the girl next to me, offering to partner up. Let's see what she's got. And the flow of events pushes forward, and the flow of events pushes forward. The prefects are losing their minds over my forbidden skill, but I'm just getting started unleashing an infernal fist that sends them flying. Total overkill. It's a bit tricky to control. But I'm not worried about the school. The prefects are the real problem. They're desperate to figure out who I am, but I'm already ghosting the scene, leaving them to scramble for their fallen comrade. Classic distraction. Meanwhile, Jiao Yong is stuck in the room of truth dealing with the fallout of our heist, but the chief prefect is trying to cut a deal. He knows something. He's showing her the ledger. Pressing her on the missing items, but she's playing it cool. Denial is her best weapon. She hands it over and walks out with nothing but a slap on the wrist. Lucky break. Back at the club, she's checking on her crew, but she notices someone is missing. Where's the kid? She calls out the act, fuming about the infernal fist incident. But she's secretly impressed. I'm a monster in the making. She corners me to check my hand, shocked that I'm completely unscathed, but I just shrug it off. I knew what I was doing. I pull out the cube to show the loot and her eyes turn into dollar signs. Absolute perfection. Our deal is done, but then she tries to recruit me. Big mistake. She promises to take care of me, but I'm not interested in her games. I'm just here for the profit. I shut her down and she's stunned when I reveal I'm selling the cube. Business is business. I demand 4 season passes for the enhancement chamber, and she's skeptical until I show her the item's true power, forcing her to agree. She's hooked. I make her deliver a message to the engineering club. And when she sees the cube of life stats, she's floored. Game changer. She knows it's worth a fortune, but she still wants me on her side. She's persistent. She gives me that look. And I just chuckle. I've got everything under control. A few days later, I'm walking to class feeling exhausted from all the chaos, but I notice some familiar faces tailing me. Trouble again. I tell my partner to head on, and I turn back to face the music, catching them red-handed. No more hiding. I demand to know who they are. And they smugly reveal they're from the Emerald Tower, arrogant as ever. They want me to come with them, but I'm not falling for that. If they want me, they can come get me. The guy gets aggressive. But I'm already one step ahead, zapping them with a lightning strike. Shocking, right? They hit the ground hard, and I tell them to stop wasting my time. Pathetic. They're terrified of my skill, so I let them scurry away. I've got better things to do. They're still talking trash as they retreat, but I shut them up with a quick projectile. And they're left wondering where it came from. Sniped. It's a clean hit and they're down for the count. Stay down. In class, the teacher drones on about dungeon mechanics. And my partner wonders where I've been. None of your business. He explains the time attack rules, and I'm already planning the optimal route. No room for error. A classmate tries to team up. But I turn him down. I've got my own plans. It seems my partner is already decided, and she steps up to claim her spot. Let's see if she can keep up. The tension is at an all-time high as the club members get absolutely chewed out. And the boss is fuming, dragging their reputations through the mud after that disastrous heist, but he's still obsessed with the coward who somehow managed to outplay them all, so he forces his subordinate to face the music and demands they track me down to fix this mess. While the Nature Club president watches on, and the Emerald Tower president makes it clear that our reputation is officially in the gutter, but he's not just angry. He's plotting revenge, and he silences his lackey before he can even make excuses. Because he's desperate to save face, so he gives him one final high-stakes ultimatum, and the guy, terrified but determined, swears he'll get the job done, so the boss even lends him a powerful golem to ensure I'm finally crushed. No more games. Meanwhile, I'm already deep in the Goblin Swamp, running a practice dungeon run with my partner, and I've crunched the numbers. To hit the top rewards, we need to clear this in under a minute, so I'm pushing her hard because I need her to master these patterns on her own. And I'm keeping a close eye on her progress, but then a massive invader goblin spawns. A serious threat, and she does not even flinch, asking if we should take it down for the extra points, so I give her the green light. And we launch into a perfectly coordinated strike as she weaves through the chaos with lethal precision, and I provide the tactical support to keep her safe while we focus our energy for the finishing blow. And the goblin is completely overwhelmed by our speed, but it's not giving up without a fight, so it lunges with a massive blade, and she barely holds her nerve. But I boost her casting speed just in time, and she unleashes a devastating surge of power, locking onto the target with absolute focus, and bang, we clear the stage with a massive score. But I know we can still be faster, and she's already begging for another lesson, which is honestly surprising. She's got a real competitive streak, so we head to the training center to keep the momentum going. And I decide it's time to teach her a new skill. Discharge, because while her aim is perfect, she's still treating her magic like a basic tool, so I show her how to channel mana directly through her hand, and I demonstrate the flick, which is the secret to true control, and she tries to mimic the flow, but she somehow fires it backwards. Total disaster, so we scale it back to basics. And I leave her to practice while I grab us some food, but she stops me, pulling out a black card to pay for the meal, and I can't help but laugh at how rich she actually is, so I head to the cafe only to find the prefects gossiping nearby. And one of them spots me and waves me over, but it's the one who's been hunting for the culprit, and she's clearly annoyed to see me, but she realizes this is the perfect chance to check my hands for burns. So she demands I show them to her because she's convinced I'm the one who used that forbidden skill, and she's sure she's finally caught me, so she makes up a lame excuse about palm reading. And I play along acting totally confused as I hold out my hand, and she grabs both of them desperate to find any sign of injury, but my hands are completely clean. And she's left totally stunned, so I turn the tables and ask her to read my dating luck instead, and she snaps back with a curse about my bad fortune. Hilarious, so I walk away leaving her to stew in her own frustration. And the next day we're back in the dungeon, and she's locked and loaded unleashing a barrage of shots, and the goblins do not stand a chance. As we tear through the level with perfect synergy, and we smash the final target into pieces, so we celebrate with a high five. Another record broken, and I can tell she's finally starting to enjoy the thrill of it. Because for the first time she's actually smiling. We're just getting started. I'm sending my partner off to handle the solo dungeon, and since she's proven herself I'm finally free to chase my own quest. I dive straight into the goblin swamp, channeling my mana and unleashing a massive fiery explosion. Total overkill. The boss does not stand a chance against this heat, and the entire area is left in smoldering ruins. Oops. I'm honestly worried about the replay footage, but at least I secured the top-tier rewards, so I grabbed the Blessing of the West Wind passive. Perfect for my build. Now I'm a true wind-type support. But as I exit the portal, I'm immediately cornered by the Emerald Tower and Nature Club presidents. They want a private word, and they start with a fake apology for their previous stunt, but it's just a setup to get their hands on my special item. I reveal the Cube of Life, and their pet tiger immediately jumps in to claim it. He's got good taste. They're stunned by the artifact's presence and they beg for a look at its stats. So I let them peek, and their jaws hit the floor when they see that 30% boost. Unbelievable. They try to pressure me into selling it, but I tell them the gear is only as good as the user, so back off. They're desperate, so I decide to play along and negotiate a deal, demanding a massive payout of season passes and a rare blank skill book. They look like they've seen a ghost. They slam the table, calling me greedy, but I start to walk away and they panic, finally agreeing to my terms. Hook, line, and sinker. Nari pulls out the skill book, admitting she's never found a use for it, and since the tiger loves the cube, the deal is sealed. Meow. They hand over the goods and we finalize the trade right there. But just as I'm about to leave, one of them jumps up demanding a combat challenge. What a sore loser. I tell him to get lost, but he keeps yapping about honor. So I remind him he already lost a 2-on-1 fight. Pathetic. I offer to let him tell everyone he won, but he sweetens the pot with a VIP production ticket. Now you have my attention. I accept the challenge. And we set the date for 2 days later because I need time to master that new skill, and they laugh at my confidence. Good luck indeed. I just smile knowing they're in for a shock. And 2 days later, the arena is packed with everyone whispering about how I'm going to get crushed, but they have no idea what's coming, and the tension is absolutely suffocating. My opponent steps up, and we agree to record the match for the whole school to see, so I step into the arena ready to end this, and we both lock in. As the deathmatch timer hits 0, start, he charges in full of hot air, but I'm already channeling my new wind magic, and he stumbles as I manipulate the very ground beneath him. What the heck? He hits the deck, and I tell him to stop acting like a baby, so he gets desperate and launches an earth cluster, hurling a massive boulder right at my head. But I do not even flinch, spinning the rock away with a flick of my wrist. Too easy. He's losing his mind, and I blast him back with a massive explosion. Bang. He's down and out, finally admitting I'm not just some coward, but he's not done yet, and he summons a massive tree golem to finish the job. No more games. The crowd is losing their minds watching the screen, screaming about how a first year is pulling off a third year's golem, but the Emerald Tower guys are just furious, desperate to keep their secret techniques under wraps. And the massive golem looms over me, ready to wipe that smirk off my face, but I don't even blink because I've been prepping for this moment for 2 days, mastering the perfect support build in the mana chamber. And now I'm ready to show them what a real all-rounder looks like, so the golem charges in for a one-hit crush, but I'm already moving, dodging the slam with ease, and channeling my new wind-type magic, gathering the currents right in my palm before unleashing a massive blast that sends the golem flying, and I hit him with a gust of wind for the perfect finish, leaving the crowd stunned as the match ends in my favor, and even my opponents can't deny the skill, so they hand over the goods as promised, but I've got one more demand. Let's keep this replay private. And they're forced to agree since they're desperate to save face, and I walk away with the leverage I need, making sure my new win skills stay off the radar. Then my team catches up, handing over the season pass I earned, and I just chuckle, brushing off their frustration like it's nothing. But I've got bigger plans, so I head straight to the Magic Engineering Club, ready to make my next big move, and the atmosphere in their workshop is intense. Totally different from the others, where the president finally corners me, knowing exactly who I am, so he drags me into his office for a private chat. demanding to know about the 10x10x10 cube, but he's playing it cool pretending he does not want any trouble while begging for a peek at the design, and I tell him straight, I do not have it anymore. Because I already handed it off to the nature club, but I did not come empty-handed, and I pull out the blueprints watching him lose his mind as he realizes they're incomplete. So I hold the rest of the secrets for ransom, demanding full access to his top-tier facilities, and he snatches the papers desperate to close the deal, even trying to recruit me on the spot. But I turn him down, taking the workshop access instead, and I leave him to his work knowing my path to the ultimate weapon is finally clear. Meanwhile, the prefects are still reeling from the defeat, arguing about their ruined reputation, but they're still obsessed with hunting me down, and they start turning on each other wondering if they should keep meddling. But they decide to give the kid a 2-month deadline hoping he'll slip up, so they set the trap and agree to wait. But as they walk away, they do not realize they're being watched, and Chunhai is lurking in the shadows, getting caught red-handed by the president, who grills her on whether she can actually take me down, and she's forced to admit she's not sure, but she confirms my hands were clean, which only makes them more suspicious. Because they know I'm hiding something big, and they're convinced I'm the one behind it also, she doubles down, swearing she'll catch me in the act. It's the start of the 3rd week, and the school is pushing new mandatory mentoring sessions where they claim we need to find our weaknesses by working with a partner, but it's clearly just another way to keep us under their thumb. Total drag. I submit my request anyway because playing the game is the only way to stay ahead. And they pair us with upperclassmen to teach us, so I play along and act like the grateful student, while Yane just wants to sleep through the whole ordeal, but I know she needs this growth to handle the real threats coming our way. So I ask her to pair up with me for the PvP matches, and she finally wakes up eager to join the action, so we decide to split the matches between us. Perfect strategy. I tell them to go on ahead while I finish some secret training. And the next day I meet my opponent in the arena, ready to see if all that extra work actually paid off, and the moment he steps up I can feel it. His aura is way sharper than before because his core has already hit C rank. And I realize things are getting serious, but I'm not worried even when the fire starts flying, because I know my teammate Yane is up against a monster from the Ruby Tower, and the match is turning into a total blowout, with her health dropping fast in the heat of the flames, and the worst part is she has absolutely zero defensive skills. Big mistake. I do not hesitate, dashing forward to take control, and I channel my energy ready to intercept the incoming assault. Gathering the mana in my palm, and with a single tap I deflect the attack. Too easy. I send him flying with a massive blast, and Yane is left completely stunned by the sudden save. But I just keep my focus, holding my ground, because I tried to warn her about the importance of these sessions, but she just was not interested in the slightest. Stubborn as ever. I sigh, knowing she needs to lose to actually learn a lesson. And the system signals that we're ready for the next round, so we step back into the arena locked and loaded, and suddenly I realize who our next opponent is. It's Lady Seo herself. This is the perfect chance to show Yane exactly how much she's lacking. So I just smile, knowing this is going to be a brutal wake-up call, and when she asks if we're going to win, I do not even blink. Of course. The timer hits 0 and we dash into the fray, and just like I predicted, she opens with a smoke grenade. But I'm already moving, telling her that trick will not work on me, and she unloads her pistols, but I'm already closing the distance, dodging every shot like it's nothing, until I'm right in her face. And I parry her weapon with a clean strike, charging up my fist for the final blow, and I stop just inches from her, flicking her forehead to let her know it's over. Game set. I ask her if she wants to keep fighting, and she finally surrenders, her ego completely shattered, but I'm already looking over at the other match where my opponent is showing off skills that should not exist. And I notice that weird movement with his hand. Something is definitely off. I call for a pause, catching him off guard, and I stare him down, demanding to know why he's holding back, but he denies everything, acting like he's giving it his all. So I offer a deal. Keep the replay private, and I'll spice things up, and he hesitates before offering me intel on the Shadowless Phantom if I can actually win, and he thinks he's got me trapped. But I just laugh, telling him I'll only spill the secrets if he survives, so he draws his blade, finally accepting the challenge, and I can feel his power surging. He's finally getting serious, so we clash, steel meeting steel in a blur of motion. And the impact sends a shockwave through the arena as we trade blows, each one faster than the last, and I'm feeling the pressure, but I love every second of it, so he prepares his final desperate strike. And I channel everything I've got into one last counter, ending it before he even knows what hit him. Checkmate. The blade clash is intense, but I'm already reading his every move, and with a swift counter I unleash a jet stream that sends him flying, leaving him wide open as he struggles to regain his footing, and just like that the match is over. Total domination. I step in to call it, telling them both to cool their jets, and with a flick of my hand I shut down the remaining energy. securing the win while leaving them both in the dust, and though the system marks it as a victory, I know it was a wake-up call because Hyun-Yu is still far from being a true star. For now, he blinks, finally realizing just how far behind he really is. And he admits his defeat, glancing at the scoreboard in disbelief. But he's still a good sport, asking me to pass on his respect, and before we head out, he asks the million-dollar question, wondering how obvious his hesitation was, but I keep it real, telling him his technique was just too average for this place, and reminding him that in a school of monsters being average is a death sentence, so he bows in gratitude, though he's still fishing for info on the Phantom, but I shut that down. He'll have to win a real fight to earn those secrets. Back in the halls, he's still reeling from his performance, and I give him some pointers, noting his patience was his only saving grace, but he knows his gear is holding him back, so I suggest a simple fix: get a better sword. And when he complains about money, I hand him a digital blueprint, asking him how many points he's got to burn, and he checks his balance. 5,000 a solid start, so I guide him through the shop to snag the right gear and catalysts. And he hands over the reagents, wondering what I'm actually cooking up, so I tell him to get some rest while I handle the rest. Later, I head to the atelier to put those materials to work, and I catch the technician off guard, but he knows me well enough. And he's wary of the trouble I bring, but I'm just here for business, so I copy his engineering skills, borrowing his expertise for my own gain. And with the new skill locked in, I'm ready to scrap the old tech, knowing that even in a pile of junk, there's gold to be found. And these failed projects are just waiting to be repurposed, so I grab a component because who wants to be normal anyway? And the technician watches, mesmerized by my speed, asking what I'm building, but I just tell him I'm scavenging. And he asks to watch, so I let him get a front row seat, and he's stunned to see the parts coming out brand new, so I decide to test his loyalty with a little temptation, offering a trade for the materials I need. And I list off the rare parts, watching his eyes widen, but he's worried about his boss Yi Seok catching wind of this, so I tell him to just get the green light first, and he checks his phone, but the silence from his boss is deafening. But then bam, the door slams open and the boss walks in, and he's shocked to see the pristine parts I've salvaged, so he begs me to fix his own failed projects, and I play it cool, acting like it's a huge favor. So he offers to compensate me for my time, and I smile, knowing exactly what I want in return, so we strike a deal, and I tell him to send the list later, and he asks for a little extra help on the side. So I agree, securing my access to the best gear in the school. The next morning the birds are chirping, but I'm already planning my next move, and I head to class, finding it strangely quiet until I spot Yane already there and looking exhausted. So I check in on her, offering some breakfast to break the ice, but she's still in a mood, so I drop the food and get straight to the point, calling out how one-sided our last session was, and I point out her biggest flaw: she's a sitting duck once spotted. So I suggest she picks up some support skills to balance her load, but I tell her to learn from the pros, not just me, and she finally agrees, grabbing the bread as a sign of truce, and she logs her request for mentoring. Perfect. And Hyun-Yu shows up feeling refreshed and ready to go, but he's still nervous about his new gear, so I tell him we'll test it, and I hand him the final piece of the puzzle. Game on. I hand him a simple paperclip, telling him he's going to need this. And he's confused, but I explain it's a vital tool for maintaining his gear's durability, because a broken blade in the field is a death sentence, so he takes it, realizing just how much of a game changer this little item really is. Meanwhile, we're back in the arena, facing off against Nari Park and her partner. And they're looking confident, especially with that tiger spirit looming over them, but I know exactly what they're planning, and Nari calls out her beast Tiggy to start the assault, and the creature grows to a massive size, ready to tear us apart. So they launch a full-scale attack, and we clash, the impact cracking my blade, but my partner does not hesitate, unleashing a freezing palm strike that hits the beast hard. And we see the damage start to tick up, but the tiger retaliates, forcing us on the defensive, and I'm struggling to keep my weapon in one piece, realizing that an E-rank sword just is not going to cut it against this kind of power. So we slide back, regrouping as the pressure mounts. We both know we're losing ground, and it's clear their strategy is to let the beast tank while Nari heals it, but their backline is wide open. So we lock eyes, silently agreeing to switch targets, and we charge straight for Nari, but she's ready, pulling out a defensive artifact, and suddenly vines erupt from the ground to form a barrier, blocking our path entirely, so we unleash everything we have, but it's not enough to break through, and I realize we're in serious trouble, because the beast catches us off guard, ending the match in a flash. The scoreboard says it all. We lost, and the next day we're sitting down to analyze the disaster, and he asks me what I would have done differently, so I tell him the truth. It was not skill, it was a massive gap in our gear. Because Nari had the best items and support, and we were just outclassed, and he finally accepts that he was outmatched from the start, so I decide it's time to stop playing around, and I tell him there's a way to bridge that gap. By getting his hands on a demon blade, the ultimate tool for a top-tier swordsman, and he's shocked, never having heard of such a thing, but I tell him we'll worry about that later, because first he needs a B-rank durability upgrade, and he's skeptical, knowing how hard that is to get. But I tell him we're going to hunt for it in the lower depths of the dungeons, and he reminds me that we're forbidden from entering during the PvP season. But I just smirk because rules are for people who do not know how to sneak in, and I explain that the lower depths are dangerous, but that's where the real loot is. So he realizes we're going off the books, and I pull out my phone to call in a favor, because I know exactly who can get us inside, and I send the message to Brother Shin. And he shows up ready to help us with our little side mission, so we set the date for Monday evening, and I pull out my notebook to confirm the details, and he's surprised by the dungeon I picked, but he's in. So it's just the two of us against the world, and he worries about the risk, but I promise we'll be fine, so he writes it down asking about the cost, but I tell him it's on the house since he owes me for the last job. And he's relieved, though he's still nervous about the lower depths, so I call him out on his lack of confidence, and he laughs it off, promising to provide the best service, but then I throw a curveball, adding another dungeon to the list. And he's stunned because that one's a B rank, but he agrees, and we part ways, so now it's time to finalize the plan, and I explain that we're going to gear up and get stronger. But it's going to take time and serious preparation, and he knows that one mistake means death, so I pull up the data and hand him the strategy guides for both dungeons, telling him to memorize every single word. No excuses. I finally finished crafting that custom gear, and my buddy was dying to see the final result, so I showed him the masterpiece, pure perfection. He was blown away by the craftsmanship, but I told him I still needed a proper base to mount it on, so I'm heading into the lower dungeon depths to hunt for the right parts. I wrapped up my business at the atelier. And just in time, because the school announced the new PvP season rules, forcing us into random duos for the upcoming dungeon trials. Class ended, and I knew I had to get ready for the chaos, but I was not expecting to be paired up again. So I told my partner to focus on her own growth for now, and we both agreed to step up our game. I did not want to waste time on practice, so I jumped straight into a real run, hoping to copy a high-tier combat skill to boost my stats. Then the portal opened, and I could not believe my eyes. It was Yeonhwa Hong, my old rival. And she looked absolutely terrified to see me, probably because our history is nothing but bad blood. But I needed to clear this quest efficiently, so I did not waste a second, barking orders to get her moving, and we sprinted into the thick of it. She was clearly regretting her life choices, complaining about her terrible luck. But I was already tracking the monsters, and we started tearing through the first wave. She was panicking at the sheer volume of enemies, but I just kept pushing forward, leaving her to clean up the stragglers, and she finally snapped, blasting everything in sight. She shouted at me to slow down, but I told her to keep up or get left behind. And she realized I was not playing around. I was clearing rooms without a second of hesitation, and she was forced to keep pace with my relentless speed, watching me like I'd done this 1,000 times. I suddenly signaled for a halt, spotting a hidden tunnel entrance, and it was way too tight for a human, so I ordered her to clear it out, staring her down until she had no choice and she finally lost her cool, screaming in frustration. I just watched, waiting for her to use her fire magic, and then, boom, the tunnel lit up with a massive explosion that proved her power, leaving her coughing and covered in soot, but she tried to play it off like it was nothing. We cleared the tunnel of goblins, and only one monster remained, so I grabbed her arm to keep her focused, warning her never to let her guard down, and she looked at me completely caught off guard. Then the dungeon boss finally appeared, ready to crush us, so I told her we needed to pincer him, but she was still shaking from the nerves. So I decided to boost her ego, challenging her to take him down solo, and she finally stepped up, ready to prove she was not just dead weight. She channeled her full power, unleashing her true skills, and the boss did not even know what hit him as she let out a battle cry, dodging his massive swing and countering with everything she had, hopping over his blade to land a perfect hit, finishing him off with a massive blast of fire. And she stood there stunned by her own success while the boss finally collapsed for good. The boss is tanking everything like it's nothing, absolute nightmare, and Yeonhwa is panicking because this dungeon has a broken damage reduction passive. But the boss is not slowing down, launching a massive axe swing, so she ducks just in time, desperate to end this before her overheat runs out, and he throws his second axe, a total trap, leaving her pinned in a crouch, forced to rely on a barrier. But I step in, blocking the hit and calling her out for dropping her guard, and she's just relieved to be alive, totally shaken, so I push her to finally use her ultimate, the Pillar of Flame, and she's annoyed by my attitude, but knows it's the only way. So I tell her to focus on the spell while I keep the boss busy, and I dash in, closing the distance, tripping the beast to create an opening, and she starts channeling her fire, blocking out the noise to focus. But the boss spots the magic circle, so I order her to keep going no matter what, and I taunt the beast, drawing his full attention, slamming him into the ground right where he needs to be, pinning him perfectly inside the trap, and she screams for me to get out of the blast zone, so I hold my ground, trusting her aim, and she unleashes the Inferno, a massive strike, clearing the area just in time, and she's ready to finish this, charging up the final flare, and the Pillar of Flame erupts, engulfing everything. leaving the boss stunned and scorched as the fire crackles, burning the last of his health. And just like that, the dungeon is cleared. She actually held her own, surprisingly impressive. But she's completely wiped out, gasping for air, and she hesitates, looking at me with a weird request, asking if we can keep the replay private, and she's practically begging, looking desperate. So I listen as she tries to bargain, promising to make up for the lost points, and she smacks a ruby into my hand, a massive bribe which is way too much for just a private video. But she's terrified of what I'm thinking, so she offers even more, trying to seal the deal, and I just smile, giving her the thumbs up, leaving her totally shocked by my sudden kindness. And she slips through the portal, still wary, but I'm actually impressed by her skills, and I decide to copy her shadow step, a solid upgrade. While she's got her own fire tricks, I've got my own plans. And I'm ready to master the infernal fist, feeling the power boost already, so I look at the ruby, wondering how to spend it, but the lower depths are calling, so the tower can wait. And I head to the gates, waiting for my crew, while checking my quest rewards, another passive slot unlocked, and I'm ready to hunt for something truly broken. Then they finally show up, complaining that I left them waiting upstairs, but we've got a mission to start, no time for small talk, and I pull out the gear to get us inside, handing over the fake badges. So we can blend in with the upperclassmen, and the disguise actually works, distorting our faces, so we start the descent, stepping into the dark. And the stairs seem to go on forever. It's massive, way deeper than I thought, and we can't use teleporters, so we're doing this the hard way, but we're almost at the entrance. And there it is, Dungeon 388, the Altar of the Feathered Serpent. Let's go. We finally made it to the entrance of the Altar of the Feathered Serpent, but the sheer intensity of the dungeon's energy hit me like a physical blow, making me realize that clearing this place is going to be an absolute nightmare. I caught the others staring, but thankfully our fake badges held up under the pressure, so I signaled the team to get ready, because we had to bypass the security system before anyone noticed us. I placed the dampener and told the crew to hold the perimeter while I took the lead, moving in with silent precision, until the massive structure of the altar loomed over us, and I warned everyone to stay sharp because the cultists were already prowling. Suddenly, a spear whistled through the air, narrowly missing my head and slamming into the tree right behind me, revealing the ambushers hiding in the shadows. They shrieked about capturing us as sacrifices, but we were not about to let them take us without a fight. So we locked eyes and prepared to execute our plan, and I channeled my energy, sweeping through their ranks with a burst of speed, while my teammate drew her blade, cutting down the first wave with lethal efficiency, and I shouted a quick warning to keep her guard up as more cultists swarmed us, desperate to drag us to the altar. I told her to handle the mob while I took the heat. And with a flash of light, I dashed toward the outskirts, knowing the real threat was waiting at the top of those stairs, where the chief priest was already preparing his dark ritual. I knew the direct path was a trap, but I also knew there was secret loot hidden in the blind spots, so I scouted the perimeter, finding the cultists distracted by the main assault, and I launched myself into the fray, dodging their spears with ease as I taunted them to bring out their leader, clearing a path through the guards with a wave of my hand, and taking a hit just to keep them focused on me. I spotted the main tent where the priest was hiding, and a flash of golden light erupted from within, forcing me to dodge a lethal beam of energy as the chief priest emerged, sensing my power and promising me a painful death. I activated my infernal fist, letting the heat surge through my veins, and stood my ground, baiting him into a clash, because I knew his attacks were fatal if they landed. But with my physical stats boosted, I was faster than he could track, making his desperate strikes look like child's play, until I caught his staff and delivered a crushing blow that shattered his defense, sending a shockwave through the entire area, and I could not help but smirk at the raw power of this combo, though I realized he was tougher than he looked, so I goaded him, mocking his lack of defensive skill, and watched him lose his composure as he prepared a final desperate attack. But I kept him pinned, forcing him to focus entirely on me, and his frustration only made him more predictable. So I danced around his strikes and signaled the others that the opening was ready as the final steps were taken toward the altar, and we finished the job, leaving the path to the summit clear of bodies. I'm moving through the dark, silent as a ghost, and I know my partner is out there fighting for her life, so I have to hurry and finish this task before we regroup. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms over me, and a giant log comes swinging down with bone-crushing force, but I barely dodge the blow, narrowly avoiding being flattened into the floor. It's that mid-boss from the guide, the one they call Chubby, and he's not alone because I'm also hunting for that legendary spellblade. But then a sudden clang rings out, and a poison dart whizzes past my ear, revealing the second mid-boss, the one they call Skinny. They're a nightmare to fight together, but I don't have time for a long, drawn-out duel. So I watch as the dart flies by, and I hop over their coordinated strike, ducking under the massive log while barely keeping my footing. Realizing I'm running out of time, so I decide to stop holding back and put in some real effort, and I parry their attacks with a sharp clash, taking a deep breath to focus my energy, While the bosses realize I'm not just some easy target, so I unleash a blue torrent slash that cuts through their defenses, sending them flying back as I claim the blade, but I know better than to let my guard down just yet. And I feel a sudden jolt of danger, so I dash toward the secret loot while the boss growls in pure frustration, and I snatch the prize right out of the air. Just as the log crashes into the spot where I was standing, missing me by a hair's breadth, and the impact cracks the very ground beneath us, leaving the boss stunned by my speed. But I've got the blade now. The game is over. I look at the weapon ready to end this lesson, and the boss charges at me with a desperate roar, but I unleash a jet stream strike that finishes him for good. And he drops to the floor defeated. Meanwhile, back at the village near the altar, my partner is busy dodging lethal energy beams, and the chief priest shudders, realizing the power of the spellblade has been claimed, and I get the notification that the quest is complete, so I decide to copy his passive ability before he goes down, and I absorb his mana sensitivity. While he screams at me to leave, but I just laugh, showing off my flaming infernal fist, and I deliver the final blow, clearing the dungeon once and for all. My partner rushes over, relieved to see me, and she watches as the blade absorbs the priest's soul, leveling up right before our eyes, while the loot crates appear as our reward. And I check out my new weapon, telling her to keep the rest of the loot for herself, because it's time to get out of here, and we step through the portal just as the dungeon starts to collapse, watching the entrance vanish into thin air, and I explain that it'll refresh eventually, but we can't stick around to be found, so we nod and make our escape. Trudging back up those endless miserable stairs and complaining about the sheer amount of walking, but at least we made it out without being spotted, so I hand back the fake badges. And we try to act like we were never there, but then we run straight into the student council, and the awkwardness is off the charts as they ask us exactly what we're doing here at this hour. We ran straight into the student council, and the awkwardness was off the charts as they demanded to know exactly what we were doing here at this hour, so I played it cool, claiming we were just running some dungeons, but they were not buying it, so I nudged my partner to handle the heat. And she shot me a look but decided to play along to get us out of there, so we turned the tables and asked them about their own dungeon clear rates, which clearly hit a nerve because they got super defensive, and the council member bragged that her score could not possibly be beaten. So I challenged her to a wager. Whoever scored higher wins, and the loser has to do whatever the winner asks, so we agreed to reveal our percentages on the count of 3, 3, 2, 1, and the results popped up, leaving her absolutely stunned that I hit a perfect 100%, and I realized I'd completely broken her confidence, so I told her I'd think of a request and walked away. The following day we were just chilling with some drinks, and I told her that resting is a crucial part of training. Then I decided to show her the best part of dungeon runs, the loot, so I pulled up my inventory to open the random crates. And we got ready for the big unboxing. I cracked open the first one, and the light filled the room, revealing a rank up scroll, a solid start. Then I opened the next one, and we both leaned in, finding a rare dark bracelet of the chief priest, which was a massive win for our gear. So I asked if she wanted to try her luck, and she opened a crate but only got a useless wooden cup. Talk about bad luck. I told her not to worry because I've always been terrible at this too. Then she tried one last time, and a blinding flash erupted, revealing a B-rank feather pillow. I could not believe it. Getting a B-rank item from a D-rank crate is a total miracle. And the stats were actually insane for recovery, so I decided it was better off in her hands, and as I looked at her, I had a thought. The pillow started glowing. So I offered it to her as a gift. It's the perfect item for her to get some real rest, and it'll drastically cut down her sleep time, making her training way more efficient. So I handed it over, and she was genuinely shocked, staring at the gift in disbelief. Then she gave it a huge hug. So cute. Suddenly my phone started buzzing, and I saw a call coming in. It was the prez saying things had gotten complicated with the dungeon, so I headed to the club room where she was waiting. And the other members whispered about the kid she'd been working with, mentioning the massive scuffle she had with the magic club, and how she'd been acting totally different lately, but I shut them up with a quick shadow bind, and slammed the door behind me, telling her to ignore those losers, but she just glared at me, demanding I show some actual concern, so I told her to cut to the chase. And she explained that someone had already placed a preferential bid on our target, which meant we were in trouble, because that really complicates our plans since dungeons lock up once they're cleared. And the academy uses a strict bidding system to manage entry, usually based on success rates, but the preferential ticket lets you skip the whole line and be the first ones inside. So someone had already beaten us to it, but I told her we'd use unauthorized means if we had to. Then she dropped the bomb. The Swordsmanship Club had reserved it, the top-tier rivals of the academy. But I did not care. I was going in anyway, and she sighed, knowing she could not stop me, telling me she knew I had something up my sleeve, so she finally gave me the green light to proceed.